Let's get it started with the offensive line combine results because it's very obvious the Jets are going to be potentially interested in an offensive lineman at pick number 10. And I know you were just telling me before we got started here, you have a lot of Giant fans who keep bringing up the name Joe Alt. So we got some offensive linemen to talk about.
Yeah, and if we're talking about Joe Alt, what I'll say is that I think this kid is spectacular and is going to be an instant impact starter wherever he gets drafted to. He kind of does remind me of a player so high profile like Rashawn Slater when he was drafted and immediately was just one of the best tackles in the NFL. I think Joe Alt is that good. And he kind of proved that this weekend at the combine. The athletic testing numbers were phenomenal. The measurements were perfect. Like he looks like he's built to be a franchise offensive tackle in the NFL. But Giants fans keep bringing him up because, of course, you know, the Giants, right tackle Evan Neal has not been good, has really been terrible. Probably replacing him this offseason, need a new starting right tackle. But I want to get it out of the way and say Joe Alt is not a right tackle. The Giants are not going to draft Joe Alt. They don't need to. They already have a good left tackle, a great left tackle in Andrew Thomas. Joe Alt has never played on the right side of the line. He's always been a starting left tackle for Notre Dame. Drafting him and moving him over to the right side is probably just going to be another disaster situation like it was for Evan Neal. And honestly, at this combine, while Joe Alt was super impressive in every drill, when they had him switch his stance and line up and do a little bit of the right tackle practice work, I thought he looked a little bit uncomfortable. Again, kind of reemphasizing to me that, yes, the Giants might have the opportunity to draft him while he's on the board at number 6 overall. I still don't think that they should, despite the fact that I think he has all pro potential in the NFL.
Yeah, I totally get that. And that's a good point to bring up too, because, we talk a lot about, these offensive linemen and it's just, okay, well, all you have to do is just, switch them over to the other side of the line. But it's so much easier said than done in practice. It's rare that someone is able to do it and have success right away. But for, someone in particular like Joe Alt, to me, I understand why so many Giants fans would be like, "Oh, perfect. You just get the best offensive lineman in the class." But as you said, it's not that easy. But number two, so at the end of last week, we talk about combine rumors. The Tennessee Titans are a team at pick 7 who most often than not in these mock drafts, everyone without thinking just goes, okay, offensive tackle to Tennessee makes sense. And that's where I think Joe Alt has a chance to go. But supposedly, there's some steam that they might go with the playmaker instead, whether it's a Brock Bowers or one of these wide receivers in the top 10. And if they do that, now you have the Jets side of it, who they're sitting at pick 10. Would they either, one, try to move up a couple of spots and maybe get Joe Alt if he's starting to fall a little bit? Or number two, is there a path to where he falls to number 10? I think that's extremely unlikely, but that was also a big talking point this weekend, as well as many Jet fans are still trying to hold out hope for this Joe Alt to the Jets dream.
Honestly, if you asked me a week or two ago, I would have said no chance. Keep dreaming. But now I'm like, okay, keep dreaming because there is a chance. I really think that the Titans GM kind of getting on that, kind of getting excited about talking about these playmakers and saying we want to add more speed. He compared what he wants to do here in Tennessee to what the Miami Dolphins have been doing. He was emphasizing speed, speed, speed. Like we want playmakers that are fast, can stretch the field. We want running backs that are fast. Like that's what he was looking for. And that doesn't scream to me Joe Alt. I mean, yeah, he's got plenty of speed for an offensive lineman, but it
Sure.
really screamed to me that they were looking at playmakers and guys who can fly. And maybe that's more so he's looking round 2. He's trying to hint that Xavier Worthy and some of those other speedsters in the receiver class are who he's looking at. But I really think that the vibe I was getting from the Tennessee Titans GM was maybe you guys all think that we're going offensive lineman. We haven't totally decided that just yet.
It could be smokescreen season too. Like this is the exact time of year where you're trying to, get people to, go off course of what you're trying to, portray the direction that you're going to go. Alt would be a phenomenal ad. That would be extremely exciting, but he wasn't really, I mean, obviously he's impressive, but there were other offensive linemen who I thought were extremely impressive as well. One of those guys will pull up their RAS score stuff. Olu Fashanu, projected to be an early pick in this draft, a 9.49 RAS score, good height and weight, great vertical, broad jump, 40 was good. All the shorter splits, 20-yard and 10-yard, were good. Although Olu, if I'm not mistaken, he got a little sore running the 40-yard dash. So So something to keep an eye on potentially there, but I don't think that'll hurt his draft stock. To me, I think he's the second best tackle in this class. I'm hoping he's there for the Jets at 10, but there's a world where he's off the board too before the Jets are on the clock.
There is a world where he's off the board, but it feels more and more likely lately that he's going to fall. I see him moving down in a lot of mock drafts. I see a lot of people preferring OT3, who we're going to discuss in just a second here, starting to move him up to OT2 and move Olufashanu down to 3. It seems like his draft stock wasn't helped much by this combine, wasn't hurt much either, but I think that other performers stood out more, did more, and just looked more impressive overall in the athletic testing. Despite the really high athletic testing score from Olu Fashanu, it just seems like there were other guys who are kind of flying up the board now, and Fashanu maybe staying put, maybe falling just a little bit. I think that he has a really good chance at being available when the Jets are on the clock. I don't think he's getting picked before then. So then it's just going to become personal preference. Do you prefer Fashanu or do you prefer this next guy that we're about to talk about?
Absolutely. Let's bring it up. Talisi Fuaga of Oregon State performed really well. Good height, good weight. Vertical was excellent. Broad jump, excellent. 40-yard, good, and 20-yard, good, but another excellent 10-yard split. And as you mentioned, arm length was something they were a little bit concerned with, but measured out pretty well at, all things considered. He is someone that I would love if considering the other two are off the board, I would love Talisi Fuaga on the Jets. You mentioned the side of the offensive line thing, which I think that comes into play with Fuaga because he's only played right tackle in college. And I think he would be similar to when Tristan Wirfs was drafted a few years ago, where it was okay, like we took this guy in the first round, but he's going to play on the right side of the line for the first couple of years. And granted, Wirfs is a very hard comparison to make because of how great he's been since being in the league, but just in the sense that, probably going to go somewhere in the top 15, I would say, but is more than likely going to start his career on the right side of the line, maybe down the line transitions to left tackle, but man, like he's just a really fun one to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that if the New York Giants do end up going offensive line in the first round, it's not going to be Joe Alt. It's not going to be Olu Fashanu. These guys are left tackles, and that's what they're going to want to play. But Fuaga, as you mentioned, he's a right tackle. He's the only one that I see as a potential fit for the Giants that could fill one of their needs because drafting a left tackle, transitioning them to the right side, you're basically calling that entire first rookie season basically a redshirt year. Like they're learning a new position. It's going to be difficult for them. But year two, that's when you expect them to make an impact. This regime, their back is against the wall. They can't wait that long for their first round draft pick to make an impact. Fuaga would be the only one of those three big offensive tackles in this class that I think could make that instant impact. So if the Giants are going to go offensive tackle, I think it's going to be Fuaga. I don't even think they're going to entertain Alt or Fashanu. I could be wrong, but Fuaga is a really solid prospect. He's one that tested athletically really well, as you mentioned, and seems to be getting a lot of buzz now following really the Senior Bowl, now the Combine. I just feel like there's been a lot of buzz around Fuaga for a while now, and it's only getting stronger.
Absolutely. Like I said, I think he would be a great fit for either the Jets or the Giants at the next level. And as you said, the Giants need at right tackle. That seems to be plug and play. For the Jets, it'll be dependent on what they do in free agency. We're going to get into free agency a little bit later in the show and who they're linked to. And there's a world where if you fill free agent left tackle in that route in free agency, then maybe Fuaga would make the most sense for them at 10. There is one more name that I wanted to bring up just because I think something from his combine really stood out, and that was JC Latham with his measurements. So I'll pull these up on the screen. Height, we know that he's big, but the weight coming in at 342, I think coming in under 350 pounds was huge for him because, there were some questions of how much would he weigh coming in. And another one who just seemed to test really well. And the main concern there was his size, but I look at him as someone else who had, a positive outcome from how he tested and measured at the combine.
Definitely. I think his size being what it was is a huge positive. I think, like you mentioned there with the weight, one other guy that I would bring up kind of similarly who maybe did themselves a lot of favors at the combine, Amarius Mims, Georgia, posted an elite athletic score, came in 6'7", 340, ran really fast in the 40-yard dash. There was some reporting about his shuttle times. I guess he didn't actually run the shuttle, but if he did, it was expected to be a really, really quick shuttle. Overall, just this is a guy who I think for the New York Giants, the arm length is incredible too, 36 inches there. So when you're looking at that, built to play tackle, for the New York Giants. Probably not going offensive line in the first round. Amarius Mims, probably not going in the first round. Maybe he does after this combine performance because it was so impressive, but I still think there's a good chance that this guy is there on day 2. And if the New York Giants want to address that tackle need, and maybe they don't care about going left tackle to right tackle, whatever, Marius Mims might be a solid option for them on day 2.